Central bank digital currencies. From a lawyer's point of view, why do I think they're a bad thing? Today on Don't Talk TV, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why I think people should be concerned about a digital currency. Hello, my name is Nicholas Wansbutter. I'm a lawyer in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and welcome to Don't Talk TV. So things are getting pretty busy for me. Some people have complained in the comments box, why are you talking about stuff instead of fighting things in court? Well, I am fighting things in court, so that's why I don't have time to do a really in-depth Don't Talk TV, but I want to do a quick one for you talking about central bank digital currency. It's something we're seeing in the news a lot now. It's something that our current government is definitely promoting, definitely trying to suggest is a good thing and something they're moving towards. As I like to do, that I'm not just making things up. They've got it right here. They've got a page on central bank digital currency, and they say right here, we are building the capability to issue a digital version of the Canadian dollar known as the central bank digital currency that Canadians can trust and rely on so we can be ready should the need arise. Currently, we do not have plans to issue a digital currency. Ultimately, Parliament and the Government of Canada will determine if or when to issue a CBDC. Well, you don't have the Bank of Canada start developing a digital currency unless you have plans to implement a digital currency at some point, and I think we've seen a lot of indications that they may want to do that. But from my perspective, as one lawyer among many, I have some major concerns about this. So 3 main concerns that I would raise that I think people should think about. So number 1, imagine if we had a digital currency about 6 weeks ago at the beginning of July when Rogers had its Canada-wide outage that lasted for about 2 days, 3 days for some people. They couldn't explain what happened. I think they've ultimately said it was some bad router. Frankly, I don't see how you bring down the whole country for 48 hours with a bad router, but regardless of that, imagine if we had digital currency then. Imagine if we had digital ID as well, which is wrapped up in the whole digital currency thing. You couldn't even prove who you are in a scenario like that where the internet's down for 48 hours plus. You couldn't buy a single thing. I mean, even on CBC radio, they're admitting on a day like today, cash is king. You need to have cash for scenarios like that. I think it's good to use cash all the time, and that kind of goes into my other 2 points, but technology is fallible. The power grid isn't indestructible, especially with the introduction of lots of e-vehicles. You overload the grid, you could start having brownouts, blackouts, internet services go down. We've seen it. It's going to happen again. That could be literally deadly in a CBDC era. Number 2, and this one is huge, is the ability of the government to cancel people. Now, we got a small taste of this when the Emergencies Act was issued back in February, people having their bank accounts frozen. Now, again, with a CBDC, it would be even easier to do that and to completely cancel someone. So if your CBDC gets frozen and cash doesn't exist anymore, you're not eating, you're not buying anything. At least people who had their bank accounts frozen, they could still borrow cash from someone else. They maybe had some cash, they had the option to have a bit of a cash reserve if they were thinking ahead. So I think that's hugely problematic. And as we see our government starting to pivot back towards climate change, you start seeing things coming out of Europe, for example. Of course, when there's backlash, they say, oh, it was just a thought experiment. But they're talking about carbon credits, having that done through CBDC. I mean, they could start tracking how much you travel, shutting down your CBDC if they feel you're traveling too much. They could have other stuff, like I know they've talked about rich people being able to buy carbon credits from poor people, which to me really just seems like a recipe to keep the rich richer and make the poor even poorer, or at least have the poor not be allowed to do anything. So I think that's another thing to keep in mind as a concern for a CBDC. Finally, as number 3, kind of ties into that surveillance. I mean, that having a CBDC would give the state and police so much surveillance power. Now, they already have that to a large extent with the widespread adoption of credit cards and Interac. I think this is a big problem with Interac when it was first introduced. And I remember back in the 90s when it first was coming in, there were people raising concerns about this. Unfortunately, they weren't heeded. I mean, I'll point the finger at myself. I use my Interac card way too much. I try to use cash almost exclusively, but keyword there is try. I'll admit, I end up using Interac a fair bit of time because I don't always have the cash with me, and it can be very convenient. But this would be taking it to the next level if we had a CBDC. They could track and see what everyone is spending. It would be a much more centralized than Interac and credit cards, because right now Interac and credit cards are in the hands of private individuals, banks and credit card companies, and the government has to actually get a warrant to access that. Now, I'm sure these companies are very compliant, but still, there's a few extra steps. CBDC run by the Bank of Canada itself, they wouldn't have to do that. And we know, we've seen news articles that the police have no qualms about surveilling us, taking information without warrants that are supposed to be necessary, and without consequence. So for those three reasons, I think CBDC is very concerning. I think people should be concerned about it and spread the word about it. So that's a quick video for today. Hopefully things calm down at least a little bit so I can do some more videos. But of course, this video isn't legal advice. If you need legal advice, call a lawyer. You can call another lawyer or myself. My phone number and my website are listed below. If you have any show topics, ideas you'd like to see me talk about, please send an email to the email address listed below or leave a comment in the comment section. And if you found this video at all interesting, helpful, or informative, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and following us on social media.